First, let's take a moment of silence for the Jess who thought she could read 28 books in 1 month. Hi friends, my name is Jess and welcome back to my channel, Books Past Bedtime. Today I'm going to be going through my May wrap-up. I had very high hopes for May, but unfortunately that did not work out. It very much backfired on me. So my TBR for June is a lot more achievable. Hopefully I achieve it, but I probably won't because that's just how things go. Regardless, let's talk about the books that I did end up reading in May. But first, as always, I'm going to be sharing my stats for the month. So in May, I did read 7 books, and those books total up to 2,416 pages. And this month, I listened to 56.79 hours of audiobooks, all on 2x speed, so more like 25-28. I actually had a very high average rating this month. I did read a lot of 5-star books, so my average rating was 4.21, which I'm very happy about. I did acquire 6 books this month, 2, actually just 1 from Book of the Month, which is rare for me, let me tell you. But then I also got like 5 books at an indie bookstore this month, so that's what those books are. I did not do any rereading. I rarely do any rereading, and I did read 1 book that could be considered own voices. In regards to genres, I did read 3 fantasy books, 1 nonfiction, and 3 thrillers. So an interesting breakdown this month. As far as format goes, I listened to 5 audiobooks and read 1 ebook and read 1 physical book. Some of these I did like read the physical book as I was listening to the audio, but I counted those in the audio category because that's really how I consumed them. You know, I don't know. Audience was pretty evenly split. I read 4 adult books and 3 YA books. As far as author identity goes, I read only books by female authors this month, which is fine with me because men. My author race breakdown sucks this month. It just sucks. There's no other better way to put it. But I did read 1 book by Black author and 6 books by white authors. Author status, 3 I have read before, 4 I have not. And my ratings this month, I rated 3 books 5 stars, 3 books 4 stars, and 1 book 2.5 stars. Let's do a little like best and worst section. I did this a little bit last month, but I'm expanding it a little bit this month. So I've been meaning to every month put in like how many of my TBR books I accomplished, especially since I do that TBR game, my tarot card TBR game. I want to start tracking like how many of those I'm actually reading and if I'm like doing what I say I'm doing. This month the resounding answer was no. I actually ended up reading 0 out of 6 of my tarot card TBR picks, which sucks. And of the 28 books that I put on my TBR, I read 6 of them. So at least most of the books that I read this month were on my TBR. I just didn't accomplish very much of my TBR. Now I do review my books in order of like least to most favorite, so this is like a little bit of a spoiler, but my favorite book of the month was definitely The Wicked King by Holly Black, and I was very much taken by surprise with how much I loved this book. I absolutely loved it. It's probably like my favorite book of the year so far. I thought it was so good. I don't know why. And my least favorite book of the month was probably The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. I will get into this more, but I just didn't really like how it was done. Now, as far as my favorite video I made this month, I only made 5 videos in May, which kind of sucks. But again, I've just been in a slump. But I think my favorite video that I made in May was probably my tarot card TBR actually. Even though I didn't read all of these books, I was very hopeful and motivated to read all of these books, and I like my energy in that video. That's probably my favorite video that I made this month. Wish I could have lived up to her expectations, but I just simply did not. Then my least favorite video was probably the audiobook video that I made. I'm kind of conflicted over this one. To be honest with you, I made it because I was kind of hoping that it would get picked up because a lot of times recommendation videos, YouTube does pick them up. So I feel like I made it in a way with that in mind instead of just like making a genuine authentic video. I'm not super happy with how that one came out and it flopped. So nobody else was super happy with how it came out either, which sucks because I do really love all of the books that I talked about in it. And I just wish I went about doing that one a little bit differently. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's just get into all of the books that I read. Again, I'm going to go from my least favorite to my most favorite, so let's just get into it. Like I already mentioned, my least favorite book that I read this month was The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson, which sucks because my lovely friend Savannah sent me this book and we were buddy reading it. It was very fun, but I just overall didn't love this book. Okay, so this book starts out in a police interrogation room and the police are questioning this young girl. She has just recently escaped from a very traumatic situation and she is telling her story to the police officers. It turns out that she was being kept in this butterfly garden by this psychotic man who kidnapped and collected women, and he would tattoo butterfly wings on their backs and keep them in this creepy garden and just torment them and terrorize them. Once they turned 21, he would kill them by encasing them in resin like a butterfly and like just keeping them in this hallway. Oh, nasty stuff. Great premise for a thriller, honestly, but I just didn't love the execution. I think this might have been partially because I listened to this on audio and I'm not sure I loved the narrators. I kind of wish I had read it physically. I might have had a different experience, but I just personally didn't love the way the author portrayed the trauma of being in that situation. I just felt icky about a lot of things that this book did. And I know everyone deals with and processes trauma in a different way, but the way that our main female character processed this trauma just didn't seem very realistic to me. And I hate saying that, but I just found it very difficult to connect with her because she was very blasé about it all. And she actually had this weird romance with the son of this evil man that was keeping her here. And he knew that she was in the butterfly garden and all of this stuff. And it really sat wrong with me. And it wasn't like a romance in the true sense of the word, but it kind of was. And I just thought that was very strange. I don't know how that could happen in that situation, and I didn't like that it happened. And this is all personal preference. Someone may very well connect with the main character of this story that has gone through a very traumatic experience, but I just found it to be kind of like making light of the situation almost. Was very uncomfortable reading it a lot of times, and I just didn't understand the main character's reactions at all. And again, like, I've been through some traumatic things in my life, nothing that traumatic, obviously, so I can't say that she reacted incorrectly. I just found it difficult to connect with her and see from her perspective. It almost felt just like a weird, like, gratuitous when I was reading it, I'm pretty sure Dot Hutchinson is a woman, but when I was reading it, my instinct was that this female character was written by a man, because I just didn't feel like her reactions were very authentic to the female experience. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like on my high horse, but I just thought this book was kind of weird and I didn't vibe with it. Now, I had 3 books that I all rated 4 stars. It was very hard for me to choose how to rank these books. I definitely loved all of the rest of the books that I'm going to talk about in this video, so I feel like on a different day I might have ranked them differently, but this is the order I'm going to go in. The next book that I'm going to talk about is The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter. This book follows these 2 sisters, Charlotte and Samantha. They had something really tragic happen to them as children. Their mother was murdered in front of them, and they were also tortured and tormented by their mother's murderer. So this event has followed them and haunted them throughout their entire life, naturally. Samantha has moved away and kind of distanced herself from her sister Charlotte and her father, whereas Charlotte stayed in their hometown and became a lawyer just like her father and is very close with him. When this horrific case happens, Charlotte is there. There's this like school shooting that happens. This girl who is holding the gun is instantly the culprit. Charlie really wants her father to take over this case because he's really the only one that is willing to defend someone like this and the only one that can kind of see what's going on. And he's a defense attorney, but he's always looking for his unicorn, the person who is actually innocent that he can actually help and save. And he really believes that this young girl is his unicorn, that she is innocent. Something happened. There's more to the story than they know about. So Charlotte is trying to help him figure out what actually did happen. And Samantha, her older sister, comes as well to help work on this case and kind of help reconnect with the family and that kind of thing. Now, I really liked this one, but I definitely liked Pretty Girls better by Karen Slaughter. Pretty Girls is just one of those books that just is absolutely incredible and blows you away. And I was kind of expecting the same from this one, but I didn't, and I probably had my expectations set too high because this one didn't quite live up to it. My biggest issue with this one is that it was paced very strange. I felt like there was so much build up. Like, this book basically happens over the course of like 2 days, and it's a pretty thick book. And then in the end, like, it's just wrapped up so quickly, and I feel like we didn't even like go into what actually happened that much. And I thought there was too much build up and not enough conclusion, basically. That's how I felt about the pacing of this book. So that just kind of left an unsatisfied taste in my mouth at the end. Like, overall, I thought it was really well done. This is definitely more gory, I would say, than Pretty Girls. Or not necessarily gory, but more shocking, especially because there's like this police brutality scene in this book that is very, very extremely hard to read, as well as the first initial scene with the girls and their mother being murdered. That was like an absolutely horrific scene to read as well. I don't know, like, I just found it to be harder to read than the stuff in Pretty Girls, so I definitely would keep that in mind going into this. I definitely would recommend. I think that this was a good story. I just mostly had some difficulty with the pacing. Next, I am gonna put They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I gave this one 4 stars as well. I absolutely loved this one, and it's kind of like weird that it's so low on this list, but I read so many freaking good books this month that this one just like didn't quite make the cut. But I did really, really love this one. This follows this professor named Scarlett, and Scarlett is kind of definitely believes in vigilante justice. Pretty much she goes around murdering men who have assaulted women and not faced any repercussions for doing so, which is fucking awesome. I wish that this was a true story. I wish this was actually happening. FBI, do not come for me. This is a joke for legal reasons. Anyway, so basically we're following the story of this professor who's doing this, and one murder that she commits hits a little bit close to home and is being investigated, and she's worried that it's going to come back to bite her and that she's going to get found out. We are also following this young college girl, Carly, who she's a freshman in college. She's really trying to find her way in the world. She has this crush on her roommate. This book is also very queer, which is lovely. But Carly has this crush on her roommate. Her roommate ends up getting assaulted. You might see where this is going. This book was really good. The twist was incredible. I was very shocked by the twist that happened in this book, and I loved it. I thought it was great. The ending was also amazing. I was a little bit worried about where this was gonna go, but it went in such a great direction. I really loved this one. Like, the concept, incredible. The characters were very well done. The execution was really good. I just took off a star because there were a couple things that were like, I don't know why this book just didn't feel like a 5-star book for me. I wish it did, but there was just like something missing, and it might have been because it took me too long to read it, to be honest with you. It took me like 2 weeks to read it, but overall I really liked it and thought it was really good. Definitely would recommend. I read this for the Literally Dead book club hosted by Books and Lala, obviously, so very excited for that discussion that will take place. And yeah. And my last 4-star read of the month was The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. This is the 3rd book in the Folk of the Air trilogy, the first one being The Cruel Prince, which I read last year and gave 4 stars. This one got another 4-star from me. I really enjoyed it. I don't want to go too much into it because I don't want to spoil the series. This was a very good conclusion, I think, to the series. I think it was really well done. I just think that I had to dock a star because I don't know, like, the reason the other books were so good was the cliffhanger endings, and the angst just freaking killed me. But because this was the conclusion, it kind of wrapped up at the end, you know, so there wasn't that like cliffhanger shocking ending, and there wasn't like a ton of angst, so it just wasn't like as emotional of a read for me. I did really love it, and I think these characters will stick with me for a long time. I think this was definitely a good conclusion. I just liked the second one better. So, and now into my 5 stars. Again, these are 5-star books. I absolutely loved them. It was very hard to rank them, but I kind of did, so here we go. The first 5-star was Hood Feminism by Mikki Kendall. This is a nonfiction read about intersectional feminism and how your feminism needs to include Black women, and needs to include Indigenous women, and needs to include poor women. It needs to include everyone. These issues are all feminist issues and should be addressed from a feminist perspective, and it was really a critique of white feminism, white middle-class feminism, pretty much, which I think is very needed. And I mean, I definitely needed to hear it. I definitely needed that perspective. This is a really well done book. Mikki Kendall includes a lot of her own personal stories, which I think added a great touch to the book. It's just very informative, and it really makes you take a look at yourself, which is something I think we all need every once in a while. I highlighted so much stuff in this book. It was just very well done. Something I would recommend everyone read. It really gives you a perspective, especially if you're kind of new to the idea of intersectional feminism. I think it really discusses pretty much every issue that feminists should be concerned about, which it's a very like well done, comprehensive read, but on kind of like an introductory level, which I definitely think is needed and there's a place for. So I definitely got a lot out of this book, and I would really recommend everyone reads it. Next, I thought this one would be my favorite of the month, but it didn't quite make the cut, but it was still amazing. And that is The Infinite Noise by Lauren Shippen. This is a YA male-male romance. Follows our main characters, Caleb and Adam. Caleb is a character with a sort of like superpower. I forget what they're called, but he's an empath, and he has heightened emotional responses to everybody. Like, he can literally feel everyone's emotions around him as like a color, and he like takes them, internalizes them. People say they're empaths, but this is like to an extreme. Like, he can legitimately take on other people's feelings and has a hard time differentiating other people's feelings from his own. But then he meets Adam, and Adam kind of like quiets the noise inside of him, and he is somebody that Caleb can be like calm around. So he's instantly drawn to him, and they have this little like romance, and it's really very cute. I loved these characters so much. There's not a lot of like angst or conflict in this book, which I didn't hate. I mean, there's definitely angst, but there's not like a big conflict which honestly I loved. I think this book is technically fan service because Lauren Shippen runs this podcast called The Bright Sessions, and Adam and Caleb are characters in that podcast, and they have this romance within the podcast, and I think this is just an expansion of that for the fans. But I haven't listened to this podcast, but I absolutely loved this. The characters were very well characterized and explained. Like, sometimes you might think if a lot of readers are going into this already knowing the characters, it would be kind of hard to like catch on, but it really wasn't at all. And Lauren has really created this like very interesting world. I really am interested in listening to the podcast. It sounds like really good. Basically, it's like therapy sessions of these characters that have these superpowers or these like heightened abilities. I don't know, I loved this book. It just made me like so emotional. I read it so quickly because it was just such a fun time and I really loved it. It was a very easy 5-star read. And then finally, as I mentioned, my favorite book of the month and probably honestly of the year was The Wicked King by Holly Black. This was so freaking good. It was so freaking good. Oh my god. Like, I can't even explain how good this book was. Like, if you like Cassandra Clare and her angst, particularly like not the last hours, what is the Lady Midnight series called? Whatever it's called. Like, that level of angst is the same as what was in this book, and I live for that shit. It was so good. I love Jude and Carden so much. Jude is like the most badass character ever. She's such an interesting character to read because she is cruel. Like, she is mean and she really just wants power. That is like her #1 priority, and she doesn't care who she steps on to get that power. And like, Carden is her one weakness, but she still kind of like contemplates giving him up in order to get what she wants because she's just like that ambitious. Like, wow, like what an interesting character to read from. Like, there's no YA protagonist like Jude. She's incredible. I loved reading about her so much. I really love Carden as well because he is also cruel, but honestly he's the soft one in the relationship. And I just, oh my god, it's so good. It was so good. The angst just like freaking killed me. I just had to keep reading, and I immediately started Queen of Nothing right after this book because I just had to know what happened, the ending. Oh my god, it's crazy. I'm sorry I'm not explaining this very well, but I don't want to spoil anything, but honestly, read this freaking series. The Cruel Prince, the first one, is very boring until you get to the end, but it's worth it to get to this freaking book. I know everyone says that, but I second them wholeheartedly. They were not lying to you. I'm not lying to you. Read this series. It's so freaking good. And on that note, those were all the books that I managed to get to in May. Thank you so much for watching this video. Definitely hit subscribe and like this video if you liked it. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you want to keep up with me on the day-to-day. All the books I talked about are linked down below, as well as free trials of Amazon, Scribd, and Book of the Month, so definitely check all of that stuff out. Some good stuff down there. If you watched this entire video, definitely leave me a little book stack emoji. Thank you again for watching and being here. I really appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Bye.